The shocking truth behind Monica's secret. Drew's explosive funeral revelation rocks Port Charles. The unexpected death of Monica Quartermain sent shockwaves through Port Charles, leaving the entire community mourning the loss of a woman who had been the heart and soul of General Hospital for decades. Monica's peaceful passing in her sleep seemed to mark the end of an era, with family and friends preparing to honor her remarkable legacy. However, what no one could have anticipated was that Monica's final secret would explode into the open during her own funeral service, turning a celebration of life into the most dramatic confrontation Port Charles had ever witnessed. Drew's relentless investigation takes an unexpected turn. Following his near-fatal shooting in early September, Drew Cain had been consumed with identifying his would-be killer. Despite surviving the 2 gunshot wounds to his back, Drew's obsession with finding the truth had only intensified during his recovery. The police investigation had yielded multiple suspects, including his former lovers Willow Tate and Nina Reeves, his political enemies, and members of the Corinthos family who felt betrayed by his recent actions. What made Drew's quest for answers even more desperate was the growing list of people who had legitimate reasons to want him eliminated. His blackmail schemes against Portia Robinson, his manipulation of the custody battle between Michael and Willow, and his corrupt use of political power had created a web of enemies throughout Port Charles. Curtis Ashford had publicly declared that Drew needed to be stopped, while Carly Spencer had made ominous threats about ending Drew's reign of terror. However, as Drew hired private investigators and pressed the police for updates, he never imagined that the answer to his mystery lay much closer to home than anyone had suspected. The Quartermain family matriarch, respected by all and trusted by everyone, had been harboring the most explosive secret of all, the private detective's devastating discovery. In the days following Monica's death, Drew's private investigator finally uncovered the evidence that would shatter everything Drew thought he knew about his family. Security footage from a traffic camera near Drew's house, previously overlooked by police, showed a familiar figure leaving the scene on the night of the shooting. Enhanced imaging technology revealed what no one wanted to believe: Monica Quartermain, the woman everyone revered as the moral compass of Port Charles, had been present at Drew's house at the exact time of the shooting. Further investigation revealed Monica's motivations, buried deep within her private medical records and personal correspondence. Monica had discovered Drew's blackmail schemes against multiple Port Charles residents, including his manipulation of Portia's medical records and his threats against Curtis's Aunt Stella. More damaging still, Monica had learned about Drew's role in Judge Heron's suspicious death, realizing that her adopted son had crossed lines that could never be uncrossed. For Monica, who had dedicated her life to healing and protecting others, Drew's actions represented everything she had fought against throughout her medical career. The woman who had spent decades saving lives could not stand by and watch as Drew destroyed innocent families for his own selfish gains. The funeral that changed everything. As September 25th dawned, the Quartermain family and the entire Port Charles community gathered to bid farewell to Monica. The General Hospital chapel was filled to capacity with colleagues, patients, and friends who had been touched by Monica's compassion and dedication over the decades. Tracy Quartermain delivered a moving eulogy about her sister-in-law's unwavering moral strength, while Jason Morgan spoke tearfully about the woman who had been more than just an adoptive mother to him. The service proceeded with the dignity and grace that everyone expected for such a beloved figure. Ned and Brooklyn Quartermain shared personal memories, while representatives from various medical organizations praised Monica's contributions to healthcare in Port Charles. It seemed as though Monica would be laid to rest with her reputation intact, remembered only for her lifetime of service and sacrifice. That peaceful conclusion was shattered when Drew Cain arrived at the chapel, still using a cane from his recent injuries, but determined to make his presence known. Despite not being officially invited and against the wishes of several family members, Drew positioned himself at the back of the chapel, his face a mask of barely contained rage and determination. The moment of truth. As the final prayers were being offered and mourners prepared to process to the cemetery, Drew suddenly stood up, his voice cutting through the solemn atmosphere like a blade. "Before you all canonize this woman," he announced, his words echoing through the stunned silence, "you need to know the truth about Monica Quartermain." The chapel erupted in gasps and murmurs as Drew limped toward the front of the church, pulling out a manila folder filled with photographs and documents. Tracy immediately stood up, her face flushed with outrage. "How dare you disrupt Monica's funeral with your lies," she shouted. But Drew was undeterred. "These aren't lies, Tracy," Drew replied. his voice steady despite the emotional chaos surrounding him. "This is security footage showing Monica leaving my house at 11:47 p.m. on September 2nd, exactly 12 minutes after I was shot." He held up the enhanced photographs, showing a figure that was unmistakably Monica despite the darkness. Jason Morgan rose from his seat, his expression dangerous. "Drew, stop this right now," he warned, but Drew continued his devastating revelation. "Monica discovered my business dealings and decided to take justice into her own hands," Drew continued, producing Monica's private journals that his investigator had uncovered. "She couldn't live with the knowledge of what I had done, so she took a gun from Alan's old collection and came to my house that night." The family's shock and denial. Ned Quartermain was the first to find his voice among the stunned family members. "This is impossible," he declared, his face pale with shock. "Monica would never hurt anyone. She dedicated her life to healing people." Brooklyn stood beside her father, tears streaming down her face as she processed the implications of Drew's accusations. The woman who had been like a grandmother to her, who had taught her about compassion and integrity, was being accused of attempted murder. Tracy's response was swift and fierce. "Get out," she commanded Drew, her voice shaking with fury. "Monica is dead. She can't defend herself against your sick accusations. Leave this chapel immediately." But Jason's reaction was perhaps the most telling. As someone who had lived a life of violence, he understood the capacity for good people to make extreme choices when pushed to their limits. His silence spoke volumes as he studied the evidence Drew had presented, his face a mixture of grief and terrible understanding. "The evidence mounts." Drew was not finished with his presentation. "There's more," he announced, producing additional documents. "Monica's medical records show she requested a psychiatric evaluation 3 weeks before the shooting. She was struggling with what she called moral injury, the psychological trauma that comes from witnessing actions that violate one's core values." The revelation that Monica had been seeking mental health support in her final weeks added a tragic dimension to Drew's accusations. Dr. Portia Robinson, who was present at the funeral, found herself caught between her professional ethics and her personal knowledge of Monica's recent behavior. Monica had been asking unusual questions about ballistics and wound patterns. Drew continued relentlessly. She consulted with trauma surgeons about what kind of injuries would be serious, but not necessarily fatal. She planned this carefully, intending to wound me as a warning rather than kill me outright. The second shot's mystery. The most chilling revelation came when Drew addressed the discrepancy that had puzzled investigators. "Monica only fired once," he explained, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "The second shot, the one that nearly killed me, came from someone else. Someone who wanted to finish what Monica started." This revelation sent new shockwaves through the assembled mourners. If Monica had only fired the warning shot, then someone else, someone still alive and potentially dangerous, had attempted to complete the assassination. Sonny Corinthos, who had been sitting quietly with Carly, suddenly looked up with sharp interest. The possibility of a second shooter opened up entirely new avenues of investigation and suspicion. The funeral's aftermath. As Drew finished his explosive presentation, the chapel had descended into chaos. Some mourners were demanding that he be forcibly removed, while others were grappling with the horrible possibility that his evidence might be legitimate. Tracy called for security, but the damage to Monica's memorial service had already been done. "Even if this is true," Carly Spencer finally spoke up, her voice cutting through the noise. "Monica is dead. What do you hope to accomplish by destroying her memory?" Drew's response revealed the depth of his anger and his need for vindication. "I want everyone to know that the woman you're all mourning tried to murder me in cold blood. I want the truth to matter, even if it's inconvenient for your precious Saint Monica." The investigation reopens. Despite the family's desire to remove Drew from the premises and continue with Monica's burial, his evidence could not be ignored. Police officers present at the funeral immediately called for backup and began securing the scene. As a potential crime scene, the revelation that Monica might have been Drew's shooter, combined with the mystery of the second gunman, meant that the investigation would have to be completely reopened. Every piece of evidence would need to be re-examined, and Monica's personal effects would require forensic analysis. For the Quartermain family, this meant that Monica's funeral would be postponed indefinitely while investigators determined the truth behind Drew's accusations. Port Charles divided. As news of the funeral disruption spread throughout Port Charles, the community found itself sharply divided. Those who had known and loved Monica for decades refused to believe that she could be capable of attempted murder, regardless of the evidence. Healthcare workers at General Hospital organized vigils in support of Monica's memory, insisting that Drew's accusations were nothing more than the desperate lies of a corrupt politician, trying to deflect blame for his own actions. However, others began to quietly acknowledge that Monica's alleged actions, while shocking, were not entirely without precedent. Several community members came forward to share conversations they had had with Monica in her final weeks, during which she had expressed deep concern about corruption in local government and her fear that good people were being hurt by those in power. The division within Port Charles reflected a larger question about justice and morality. Even if Monica had attempted to shoot Drew, many residents felt that her actions were understandable given Drew's pattern of destroying lives through blackmail and manipulation. The woman who had dedicated her career to healing had perhaps seen violence as the only way to stop someone she viewed as a cancer within their community. The truth's legacy. As Drew finally left the chapel under police escort, his satisfaction at having exposed Monica's secret was evident. Despite the hostile reception from the mourners, he had achieved his goal of ensuring that Monica would not be remembered as the saint that many believed her to be. However, his victory came at an enormous personal cost. By choosing to reveal Monica's secret during her funeral, Drew had effectively severed his remaining ties to the Quartermain family and alienated himself from much of Port Charles. Even those who might have supported him in other circumstances were repulsed by his decision to attack a dead woman during her memorial service. The mystery of the second shooter remained unsolved, ensuring that Drew's ordeal was far from over. Whoever had fired that nearly fatal second shot was still at large, and Drew's very public accusations at Monica's funeral had likely made him an even bigger target. For the residents of Port Charles, Monica's funeral had become a watershed moment that forced them to confront uncomfortable truths about justice, morality, and the lengths to which good people might go when faced with intolerable circumstances. The beloved doctor's legacy would forever be complicated by the revelation of her final, desperate act, leaving a community to grapple with the reality that even their most revered figures were capable of making choices that defied everything they had previously stood for. As the investigation continued and the search for the second shooter intensified, one thing remained clear. Drew Cain's explosive revelation had changed Port Charles forever, ensuring that Monica Quartermain's death would be remembered not for the peaceful passing of a beloved healer, but for the shocking truth that emerged when her deepest secret was finally exposed. Next, we will dive deep into the thrilling twists and emotional turns awaiting us in Port Charles during the week of Monday, September 22nd through Friday, September 26th. This period promises a whirlwind of revelations that could reshape alliances, heartfelt farewells that tug at the heartstrings, and an unexpected visitor who might unearth long-buried family secrets. As tensions simmer and old wounds resurface, the residents of this beloved town face challenges that test their loyalties and resilience, all while honoring a pivotal figure in their lives. Let's break it down day by day, exploring how these events could ripple through the community and spark new storylines filled with intrigue and drama. Kicking off the week on Monday, September 22nd, Anna Devane finds herself on the receiving end of some truly jaw-dropping information that could upend everything she thought she knew about past mysteries. Teaming up with Dante Falconeri, Elizabeth Baldwin, and Lucas Jones, the group stumbles upon a figure who bears an uncanny resemblance to the late Nathan West, sending shockwaves through their investigation and possibly hinting at a larger conspiracy involving hidden identities or advanced deceptions. This sighting might tie into unresolved cases from years ago, perhaps even linking back to shadowy organizations that have plagued Port Charles before, forcing Anna to question her instincts and alliances. Meanwhile, Sonny Corinthos and Carly Spencer are hit with devastating news that could strain their already complicated relationship, maybe involving a family member's health crisis or a business setback that threatens their empire. Adding to the emotional intensity, Britt Westburn appears visibly rattled. Could this be due to an olive branch from Lulu Spencer, aiming to mend their fractured bond? Or is it the sight of her presumed deceased brother at the hospital that throws her off balance? This moment might explore Britt's inner turmoil, delving into her regrets over lost family ties and her evolving role in the medical world. On another front, Molly Lansing Davis opens up to her mother, Alexis Davis, sharing confidences that could revolve around personal dilemmas or legal entanglements, strengthening their mother-daughter dynamic amid the chaos. And in a lighter yet intriguing twist, Cody Bell seems to have figured out Brooklyn Quartermain Chase's game. when he spots something suspicious in the stables, potentially uncovering a scheme involving hidden agendas or romantic entanglements that add a layer of playful deception to the mix. As we move to Tuesday, September 23rd, Britt Westburn grapples with a heavy sense of guilt that weighs on her conscience, prompting her to reconsider her recent dismissal of Jason Morgan and wonder if bridging that gap could lead to unexpected alliances or even a rekindled spark. This internal conflict might highlight Britt's growth, showing her vulnerability and desire for redemption in a town where second chances are rare, but transformative. At the same time, Drew Kane steps up by issuing fresh directives, possibly influenced by his son Denny Morgan's persuasive pleas that tug at his paternal heartstrings, leading to decisions that affect his business ventures or family obligations in profound ways. Elsewhere, Martin Gray dials up a cryptic contact in a phone call shrouded in mystery, which could very well connect to the enigmatic rival slated for later in the week, perhaps involving legal documents or forgotten relatives that stir up old quarrels. Lulu Spencer, seeking solace and wisdom, turns to Tracy Quartermaine, likely to offer condolences over Monica's passing and discuss how the family can rally together, weaving in themes of legacy and support during times of grief. Wrapping up the day, Anna and Felicia Scorpio huddle for a crucial debriefing session, dissecting the bizarre appearance of the Nathan lookalike and brainstorming theories that might involve cloning experiments or international intrigue, heightening the suspense as they piece together clues from their shared history. Midweek on Wednesday, September 24th, Tracy Quartermaine boldly tempts fate with actions that could invite danger or controversy, perhaps by meddling in affairs that aren't hers or making risky business moves that challenge the Quartermaine dynasty's stability. This daring stance might reveal more about Tracy's unyielding spirit and her willingness to protect her loved ones at any cost, even if it means crossing ethical lines. In a more intimate scene, Ned Quartermaine and Brooke Lynn share a candid heart-to-heart, opening up about their fears, dreams, and the pressures of family expectations, which could fortify their bond and lead to collaborative schemes moving forward. Trina Robinson, ever curious and determined, poses pointed questions to Jordan Ashford, potentially probing into the complexities of her parentage involving Curtis Ashford and her mother, unearthing truths that reshape her identity and relationships in unexpected directions. Speaking of family ties, Portia Robinson reaches out to Isaiah Gannon for guidance or assistance, maybe in a medical or personal matter that ties into her professional life at the hospital, adding depth to her character's balancing act between career and home. Finally, Felicia Scorpio finds herself worrying intensely about young James West, perhaps fearing for his safety amid the town's escalating dramas, or dealing with everyday parental concerns amplified by Port Charles' unpredictable nature. The emotional core of the week arrives on Thursday, September 25th, as the Quartermaine family and the wider Port Charles community gather to bid a poignant farewell to the iconic Monica Quartermaine, a woman whose influence has shaped countless lives. Expect an array of touching flashback sequences that revisit Monica's most memorable moments, from her early days as a dedicated doctor to her fierce battles within the Quartermaine clan, evoking nostalgia and highlighting her enduring legacy. The ceremony might include heartfelt tributes from hospital staff, who share stories of her mentorship and compassion, underscoring how she mentored generations of medical professionals and stood as a pillar of strength. Beyond the expected guests, whispers of additional surprise appearances from figures tied to Monica's storied past could emerge, bringing back old friends or rivals to pay their respects and stir up forgotten rivalries. This gathering not only serves as a cathartic release for the characters, but also as a reminder of the interconnected web of relationships in Port Charles, where loss often paves the way for new beginnings and revelations. Capping off the week on Friday, September 26th, the commemoration of Monica's remarkable life presses on, with more evocative flashbacks illuminating her journey from an orphaned girl named Monica Bard, fostered by Gail Adamson Baldwin, to the formidable matriarch we all admire. These vignettes could delve into her triumphs over adversity, her romantic entanglements, and her unwavering commitment to her adopted family, painting a fuller picture of her complexity. However, the real bombshell comes in the form of a surprise guest portrayed by the talented Erica Slezak, who crashes the event and introduces herself as Monica's long-lost sister, a revelation that shatters assumptions and opens doors to unexplored family history. This twist might explain mysterious elements from earlier episodes, such as the letter discovered in Drew's apartment, perhaps adorned with children's drawings that hinted at this connection. And it could tie directly to Martin Gray's secretive call on Tuesday. Imagine the chaos as this newcomer shares tales of their shared upbringing, potential inheritances, or hidden scandals, forcing the Quartermains to confront buried secrets and reevaluate their heritage. As the week wraps, these developments leave us pondering how this new family dynamic will influence ongoing plots, from power struggles to personal redemptions, ensuring that Monica's memory lives on in the most dramatic fashion possible. There you have it, fellow fans, a week brimming with suspense, sorrow, and surprises that keep us hooked on General Hospital. Stay tuned for more updates, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for all the latest spoilers. What do you think this long-lost sister will bring to the table? Share your theories in the comments below.